Right. Welcome to the executive meeting on the 7th of October 2025. I'm going to start with apologies for absence, item 1, and I don't believe there are any. No apologies. Thank you. Item number 2, leaders' announcements. Firstly, obviously, I want to remind everyone that we are online, we're being webcast, so please speak into the microphones when you say anything. I think the other thing is obviously that we've not had a meeting since the 8th of July, the executive meeting, and since then, in August, Councillor Norma Simons died, so very sadly. I was not going to propose that we mark that tonight because we've got a plan for full council, and it's important that all members on all sides have an opportunity to speak about reminiscing about her and paying tribute to Norma. So we will leave that for the meeting in October. So item 3 is the minutes, 8th of July 2025, which is on pages 6 to 16 of the agenda pack. So we have before us the minutes from the meeting on the 8th of July. Are there any corrections, or are members content for me as leader to sign the minutes? Oh, Marnie?
Yes,
Yep.
yes, leader, I so propose that we accept these minutes.
Lovely, thank you very much. Do I have a second? Lovely, Alex, thank you very much. So they're proposed and seconded. Could I have a show of hands for all those in favour, please? Lovely, thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Right, item 4 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest tonight? Yes, Vicky.
I want to declare a non-pecuniary interest in RPZs because I live on one of the roads that will be considered for an RPZ. However, I don't think I have any predisposition to either having RPZs or not, because my house has sufficient parking for the cars that we have. So I don't care whether there's an RPZ or not. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, item 5 is the review of resident permit zone policy, which is on pages 17 to 32 of the agenda pack tonight. We're going to hand over to Councillor Tim Hoskin, Executive Member for Environmental Sustainability, to present the report.
Thank you, Leader. So you have in the packs there, the meeting pack, a paper on the review of resident permit zone policy. So just by way of quick background, our East Herts resident permit parking schemes, both the operational guidance and the permit parking policy sets out the criteria for implementing new RPZs and their operational details. RPZs are designed to support residents in areas where on-street parking demand exceeds supply, reducing commuter parking and improving the quality of life in residential areas. The Council's Parking Strategy 2024 committed to a review of its RPZ approach, and this was largely in response to community concerns about parking availability and enforcement. In early 2025, we commissioned CitySense to independently assess our RPZ operational guidance and policy, and the review concluded that there were made a number of recommendations, all of which you can see within Appendix B of the paper. There are two specific changes which I'd like you to just reinforce those now. So some targeted amendments to East Herts scheme, reduce the barriers to RPZ implementation, ensuring greater flexibility and responsiveness to local needs, support the Council's strategic goals around sustainable transport, air quality and town centre vitality, reflect best practice from comparable councils as identified in the independent review conducted by CitySense, and better reflect the lived experience of residents in those areas with high parking stress. And also to better align some of the disparate language within both the operational guidance and the parking policy. Two changes which we are considering this evening. One is that we currently requires non-resident parking, to exceed 40% occupancy. And our recommendation here is that we reduce that threshold from 40 to 10 to allow a more holistic assessment of local context. The other change which we're recommending here is that 75% of households in the proposed zone have on-street parking capacity for one vehicle. We're proposing to reduce that to a minimum of 50%, again, to try and give some more practical constraints in the historic mixed use or high density area. So those are the sort of headlines from the paper. There's one small amendment to the recommendations, if I could highlight that to you. Currently, A says that the council, I'd like to amend that to recommend to council that it adopts the below changes to East Herts residents RPZ operational guidance policy, and then the wording is exactly the same as published. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Tim, you're proposing. Could I have a seconder, please? Oh, Marnie, thank you very much. So we've also had I've been contacted by a resident, Mr. Bailey, who lives on Gladstone Road in Ware, and he's asked if he can come and attend to ask a question of the executive. And so we'd like to invite Mr. Bailey up to come and ask his question. Mr. Bailey. And we've set a guidance of 3 minutes. If you could keep it within that, that would be appreciated.
I'm absolutely going for 3 minutes. It's quite tight, but we'll go for it. I'm here to ask you to look again at one of the recommendations made by CitySense, which is not proposed in this report to be adopted, and that's to reduce the requirement that more than 50% of households must respond before the consultation is taken forward in the engagement stage. 50% is wrong on 2 counts. One, it's unrealistically high. As I'm sure CitySense knew, they would have had experience, as I have actually in a very long career in local government, of running local government consultations, and hitting 50% is a dream for most. I've had some very, very controversial proposals where I didn't hit 50%. So it's an unrealistically high one. But the second reason I could illustrate by talking about Gladstone Road specifically. There are 82 residents in Gladstone Road, residences in the street. Responses were received from 33 residents, so it's a 40% response rate. So we didn't hit the 50%, so it's not being taken forward. Of the 42 people who did respond, 32 were in favour, 8 against, and 3 neutral. So that's 76% of those who responded were in favour of an RPZ. You need to know that Gladstone Road is quite a mixed development. It's got 2 arms, it's a U-shape. One arm is largely Victorian and some Edwardian cottages with clearly very, very little off-street parking. The other arm is newer. It's got a block which is a sheltered housing provision, and then it's got some houses with great big crossovers who can park literally 4 cars in front of their houses, and then it's got some flats which have all got allocated parking spaces. So if I were one of the people with off-street parking and I received a letter and the letter said to initiate the consultation, if at this stage the majority of households on your street indicate that they do not support the scheme, the proposal will not be taken forward. If I'm one of those people receiving that letter, I've got off-street parking, I'm not particularly concerned about it, then there's no reason for me to respond to that exercise at all. If I did oppose the scheme, I would obviously want to be part of the majority of households who indicated that I don't support the scheme, so I would have responded. But in fact, only 8 people did respond saying they don't support the scheme. So in summary, hopefully I'm getting close to my 3 minutes. 50% is an unrealistically high target for a consultation exercise. And it's secondly, it's particularly unreasonable, whereas a significant proportion of residences already have off-street parking. So allowances in the policy need to be made for low response rates from such residences, and possibly for the sheltered housing and things like that as well. So some discretion needs to be into interpreting the results. Finally, I wouldn't be right if I didn't say that the current scheme does allow some officer discretion where there's ambiguity in the results of other factors. I think what I've shown you is that there is some ambiguity. There are also a whole load of other factors which I could go on for well over 3 minutes about. And I would urge members to ask officers to consider using this discretion to allow our FPZ proposal to progress. It's really urgent now because the County Council independently is consulting on putting additional yellow lines in the street, reducing the number of parking spaces. Brilliant idea if we had an RPZ, nightmare if we don't. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bailey. That's appreciated. Hand over to Tim. I think you can up to answer.
Try and answer. I think the short answer is yes, we are willing to look at some of the nuances that you've talked about. I think it's important, though, in the context of this evening, that we are anxious to get, and I'll call it a vanilla policy through. We want to get a vanilla through because that meets most requirements. But by saying most, it reflects the fact that some might not fit, and you've given an eloquent example with Gladstone Road. I think the other aspects which I need to be clear on within this session, I'm reluctant to change the 50% sort of democracy approach. It seems odd that we'd give the minority control to expose others to expenditure which they may not be able to afford. So I think that's something which will be harder to change. But I do take your point on the wording, and I think that could be more directive, you know, in terms of a neutral decision needs to be voiced rather than just silence, because the silence doesn't figure in the equation. I think the other point which I think we can explore is, you know, maybe there need to be hyper-local bits within zones, you know, so that there are areas where there are completely different character, perhaps, from other parts. And again, you've eloquently described that. So I think with that, what I'd like to be able to offer is that I'm quite happy to sit down separately and go through those issues with Stephen and Martin, if you know, if that's the support you need, or just separately if you're comfortable with that. And I'm happy to pick up with the outside and do that.
Thank you.
So I should also thank you for, you know, bringing the attention, bringing this forward and being determined enough to get it to exec. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, I think with that in mind, and that future opportunity for discussion and looking at the finer details of this particular issue, I think we would like to go for a vote on this policy that's in front of us. So if I could, so there are 3 recommendations which have been has been changed slightly. Sorry, yeah, does anyone else actually have any questions? Okay, sorry, Chris.
That's okay. Yeah, I just want to make a few comments because of since I became a councillor in 2019 for All Saints in Stortford, my ward. It's been quite a big issue for quite a few people, given the proximity of Stansted Airport. And it was quite obvious that at least a couple of roads had this problem where they really could benefit from RPZ, but the policy kept really leading to that being that proposition not being fulfilled. And I think this change of policy will give them an opportunity to have what they need, and what has been, from common sense point of view and a pragmatic point of view and a holistic point of view, needed for a while for a couple of the roads at least. So I very much welcome this. I just ask if Councillor Hosking could confirm that there's some flexibility around timings as well, because historically RPZs have mainly been sort of day-long RPZs in East Herts. So just if you could confirm that we could do things like hour-long RPZs on particular days, which would particularly cater for people who are staying for 2 weeks with their car, or leaving their car for 2 weeks in a residential area and flying off somewhere from Stansted.
Yep, I can give that assurance. In fact, there are a number of examples within East Herts where the parking has been taken up by people commuting. So they park the car, leave for work, and come back, you know, 8-9 hours later. And so there is an opportunity through consultation with residents to carve out just a spoiler hour in the middle of the day, if you like, you know, 11 till 12 or whatever it is. And that sort of pollutes the whole day for an all-day parker. Now, you know, that may work in some instances and it may work very well. We've seen instances where it's worked very well. It might not work in other instances, but again, it's a thought process we go through with residents about how we could manage that. So, you know, it may not work everywhere, but again, there's flexibility to think that through.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Oh, yeah. Okay. Carl?
Yeah, if the change here does lead to an increase in RPZs, will there be the resource to ensure they are correctly policed?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, and clearly, if you carried on adding and adding and adding, we would need to think that through. But I think the scope within the current resources, and certainly our outsourced policing of parking restrictions, to be able to cope with that. I'm not sure Ben's got any other concerns in that area. So yeah, I mean, if it carried on, then yes, clearly we might have to have a step change. But the guys are flexible in terms of where they police the frequency of the police at a level that then makes sure that we're ensuring the rules are kept.
Sarah?
Thank you. It wasn't a question. I just really welcome the change in the commuter parking going from 40% to 10%. I think that's been quite a sticking point, like with a couple of areas where they could have benefited from an RPZ. So hopefully this will unlock that challenge to putting one in place. So yeah, I think that'll be really beneficial.
Thank you. Any others? No? Okay. So the recommendation for this item is detailed on page 17 to 18 of the agenda pack. There's a slight amendment which Tim has described. Please could I have a show of hands for all those in favour, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Right. We'll move on to item 6, which is consideration of the draft statement of licensing principles under the Gambling Act 2025 to 2028. And that's on pages 33 to 91 of the agenda pack. And I'm going to hand over to Councillor Vicky Glover-Ward, Executive Member for Planning and Growth, to present it.
As a district council, we are required to have a statement of gambling principles for the regulation of non-remote gambling activities, which is often referred to as a gambling policy, and this must be reviewed every 3 years. Whilst East Hart historically has low numbers of gambling licences, with around 200 to 230 per annum over the past 3 years, it is important to have a robust statement of principles should applications for other types of premises be received in the future. Also worth noting that East Hart has very low numbers of complaints regarding gambling. Over the last 5 years, the only gambling complaints that have been received related to poker in pubs. Poker is permitted within certain limits without the need for a licence, so whilst matters have been looked into, they have not resulted in any enforcement action. In July, I brought the consultation on the Statement of Gambling Principles to the Executive and then full Council for endorsement. As there had been no changes to the relevant legislation or guidance, there were no substantive changes to the statement, but officers did review the wording to clarify, as this can be a complex and quite dry subject. The drafting has been considered by the members of the Licensing Committee and no amendments were proposed, and the chair of the Licensing Committee commented that she thought that the detail in the report was extensive and that it was reassuring to have a policy ready if needed. The public consultation on the revised policy has been completed and there were 2 responses from members of the public. Neither response raised concerns on the policy itself, but were mainly concerning points around gambling that are out with the control of East Harts Council. As such, the consultation responses have not resulted in any amendments to the draft policy previously presented. So, I would like to propose that following the public consultation, members review the draft statement of licensing principles under the Gambling Act and make any amendments and recommend the statement, including any amendments for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Yep, Tim, thank you very much. Right, any comments, questions, thoughts? Marnie?
Thank you, Leader. I welcome this report, and I thank the executive member and the officers for all the work involved in updating it. I think it is very sound and I do welcome it. I especially welcome the points in 10.7 and 10.8, because these draw attention to the health implications of problem gambling, really. And it is a true health issue, because it seems that there is one suicide a day in the United Kingdom related to problem gambling. So it is a really serious issue, and problem gambling can cause a great deal of family distress, family breakdown, impact upon children, impact on families, loss of employment, loss of house, loss of income, and terrible effects on the families. So I think it really does need to be taken seriously. I wish in many ways that we could make this policy stronger, and we could really ask the government if local councils could have powers to limit the promotion of gambling and the advertising of gambling, the advertising at sporting events and other events. So I welcome what is here. I just regret the fact that it is limited, and I do wish that we could do something larger and something bigger. Thank you. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Mayoni, for your comments, and I understand your concerns. I can confirm that East Herts has a policy where we do not allow advertising in our own venues and other areas around gambling.
Any other questions, comments? No. Okay, thank you very much. So the recommendation for this item are detailed, as Vicky said, on pages 17 to 18 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands for all those in favour, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, we move on to the next item, which is item 7. Consideration of the draft markets policy following public consultation, which is on pages 92 to 111 of the agenda pack. And again, it's back to Vicky to present the report.
Thank you. East Herts District Council recognises the importance of markets to the local economy and the character of the area. They are an important council service and contribute in several ways to the local communities that they serve. East Herts currently directly runs 3 local markets, both Hertford and Ware weekly charter markets and the Hertford monthly farmers market. The council's market represent an important investment by the council in delivering economic growth and regeneration by creating jobs, promoting local produce, attracting tourists and enhancing town centre vitality. The council is keen to maintain the balance of markets within the district and ensure that there is consistency in the way that markets are organised. In this context, the council has decided to implement a new policy which sets out the basis upon which markets are held and the process by which applications for new markets will be considered. Around 5 years ago, it was decided that the markets would move from being licensed under the various market acts to being covered by the street trading policy, which imposed limitations on the flexibility around the markets and particularly on pricing. Once the new market policy comes into effect, all references to markets will be removed from the street trading policy. The council recognises that there are many different types of market activities and the policy is intended to cater for each type of market. In particular, the policy distinguishes between commercial markets and those that are largely community-based with a strong charitable element. Section 5 of this policy deals with the different types of markets and the council's approach in considering applications in respect of such markets. The policy will be reviewed at a minimum of 5-yearly intervals. We will be producing a cost structure for the various types of market activity as the policy expands the type of markets that can be run. But it is worth noting that the current cost structure allows for quarterly or annual payments by stallholders, and there has been an offer available to stallholders for over a year of a free trial covering full stall dates on either the farmers or the charter markets. A consultation has been undertaken on the draft markets policy and there were surprisingly few replies, but in a synopsis of the responses and the changes made to the policy from the consultation are within the papers in front of you. As such, I would like to propose that the market policy, as amended following public consultation, be adopted, taking effect from the 1st of January 2026. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I have a seconder, please? Joe, thank you very much. Comments, questions, thoughts? Alex?
I'm not sure whether it probably isn't because of this policy amendment because it hasn't happened yet, but the market on Saturday in Hertford was very busy, a lot more stalls than I've seen for a long time. So the changes seem to have been good that you've made already. So thank you.
Right, any other comments? No, okay. So the recommendation for this item is as detailed on page 92 of the agenda pack. There's one recommendation. Could we have a show of hands for all of those in favour, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. So the next item is item 8, not surprisingly, but I'm going to bring forward item 13, which is the annual procurement report, which is going to be so annual procurement report, which is on pages 282 to 289 of the agenda pack. And I'm going to hand over to Councillor Carl Britton, who will present it.
Thank you, Leader. This report summarises the procurement activity of the last 12 months, looks ahead to procurements coming up over the next 12 months, and reports on the actions taken to support the procurement strategy. The recommendations seek delegated authority to the relevant director in consultation with the portfolio holder for procurement activities listed in section 2.2. Advance approval will ensure that the procurement activities are not delayed at a critical time. This covers all procurements over £200,000 in value. The Council's procurement strategy was approved in March 2025, and section 2.4 lists the actions that have been taken in support of that strategy. In section 2.5, this looks back at the activities and procurements over the past year, whilst the appendix to the report shows the longer-term pipeline of procurement activity ahead. I'd like to propose this report. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. So could I have a seconder, please, for the report? Alex, thank you very much. So does anyone have a comment or a question that they want to ask or raise? Yeah, Joe.
Start off. Carl, is there any sort of commentary you can give if you look at the timescales and the contracts that are forthcoming, with potentially they're going to be let over a number of years? With LGR coming, could you give us any commentary around that in terms of, are the contracts still to be let for that period, or is there any risk associated with perhaps getting best value?
I may hand this over to Kirsten, but just as a first thought before I do that, I mean, obviously, any contracts that are in place when this authority ends and is taken over by Unity Authority, those contracts, I understand, will continue as they are. So there shouldn't be too many risks, but I don't know whether Kirsten would like to just comment.
As we go forward, we are considering the appropriate length of contract, because obviously we need to get best value for the council that exists now. So we wouldn't go unnecessarily short, or we also need to consider the journey at the other side. So it's the best length of contract now to get the value for money that we need right this second, and to be in a good place to re-procure on the other side.
Okay, thank you very much. It's certainly challenging. It's going to be a challenge. I think that's what we know for certain. Any other questions, comments? No. Okay. So we've had comments and questions. The recommendations for this item are detailed on page 282 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands for those in favour, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, so we'll go back to item 9, I think it was. 8. Back to item 8. Thank you. Okay. Back to item 8, provisional outturn 2024-25, a draft statement of accounts for 2024 and 25. This is on pages 112 to 206 of the agenda pack, and I'll hand over to Carl to present it.
Thank you, Lee. This report presents the provisional outturn for the year 2024-25 and the draft statement of accounts for 24-25. The figures are all provisional as the accounts remain subject to auditor approval. Within the revenue account, the headline is an overspend of £132,000. Whilst any overspend is unwelcome, this represents a great improvement on the forecast at the end of Q3, when the forecast was a £955,000 overspend. This has been achieved by the work done on the capitalisation of interest, the review of the minimum revenue provision, and a welcome improvement in the cost of services, especially within the waste and IT services. The overspend is to be funded from the General Reserve. The summary of the outturn can be found in Appendix A, whilst the significant variances are listed in more detail in Appendix B. It should be noted that the budget and outturn figures for the services in Appendix A are net figures, and this disguises the fact that there will be gross income figures and gross expenditure figures of a much larger magnitude. Thus, for example, it is not simply the case that gross expenditure within corporate budgets was actually 10 times the amount expected. The largest single overspend is the loss on property funds. This relates to the winding up of the Loughbury Property Fund and the loss of capital value in that fund. The loss is largely offset by a transfer from the interest equalisation reserve of 1.6 million to the revenue account. This loss had been fully anticipated and is also mitigated by the income that the fund has provided over several years. The overspend in operations is largely due to the performance of Beam. The theatre is taking longer than expected to reach its full potential, with the development of the venue still a work in progress. I do expect progress to continue, and we should expect a steadily improving picture over the next couple of years. Business rate increases have also caused a significant overspend, along with the continuing cost of rates at Charrington's House. Appeals on some of these increases are underway, but will take time to be resolved. At the end of 2024-25, the Council held total reserves of just over £21 million. These reserves are currently being reviewed to ensure they are both necessary and adequate. Spending on the capital programme, detailed in Appendix C, was significantly below expectations, but much of this is merely a timing issue, and much of the shortfall is rolled over to 25-26. There are some significant variances to spending, though, in particular the reduction in the expected spend on waste vehicles from 8 million to 6.2 million. In Appendix D, we have the draft statement of accounts for 24-25, which are currently being audited. It has been a tremendous achievement to bring the production and audit of accounts back to the required schedule after the long delays that we have experienced over the previous years. With a new auditor in place, it is hoped that the delays of the past will not be repeated, and going forward, financial reporting will remain within the necessary timelines. The recommendations are shown on page 112, and I'd like to propose this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I have a seconder, please, for the report? Miley, thank you very much. Comments and questions? Anything to raise? Ian.
Thank you, Leila. I've got two questions, if I may. The first is on page 122. It says that the URC Church Hall £170,000 has been taken out of the capital forecast. So I wondered if Carl could explain that. And the second thing is, and I know the answer to this already, is are we still paying business rates on Charrington's House and also on the former Lemon Tree restaurant? And if so, how do we get out of that? Because they're both empty buildings. Thank you.
So the URC Hall, I believe that's just been rolled forward. So that the budget wasn't spent, but it's been rolled forward into what's probably going to be the next year, isn't it now? So Yeah, so there's no change to that budget. It's just a timing issue. Obviously, there are issues around the ULC Hall which we're aware of in terms of the funding of it going forward. But I think it's too early really to know where that's going at the moment. We're still in consultation with community interest groups. Regarding the rates on the Lemon Tree, I believe we are still paying rates on the Lemon Tree and Charrington's, and was there another one you mentioned? Charrington's and Lemon Tree, yeah. Those will still continue to be due whilst we own those buildings. So I think once the ORL scheme, when it gets planning permission now, then that will transfer over to City Heart, won't it? So that will be a natural end to that. The Lemon Tree, obviously, the future of that Lemon Tree building is up for discussion at the moment. I think the Lemon Tree discussion needs to be done once there's more clarity around the ORL scheme, because obviously it's part of land that's associated with that. I think it was purchased possibly with that in mind, and the final design of the ORL scheme may impact what we do, what the best future is for that building. So I think the idea is to wait until there's more clarity. Timeline hopefully within 6 months, but these things never sometimes go as quickly as you hope they're going to go.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Tim.
Yeah, I was just going to echo Carl's thanks to the finance team for the capitalisation of interest, which started with Brian's successor, Matthew, and has been successfully concluded on this watch. So that was refreshing to see that happen, and the impact the positive impact that's had on our accounts is equally refreshing. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really a good point, well made, isn't it? I think we reflect the hard work that's gone into all of this, and I think getting the audits up to date. I think that's another really pleasing situation to be in. So that's great. I've got a quick just a clarification. So the refuse and recycling vehicles, that spend is just being moved forward. It's not actually a reduction in spend, is it?
I think there is anticipated to be a reduction in spend, because I think the original estimate was 8 million and it's turned out to be 6.2, and I'm not sure whether that's confirmed that's the final number, because obviously this was a it's probably in the Q1 report, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, so fair enough.
We can look at that later.
Lovely. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. There's 3 recommendations for this report, and they are on page 112 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands to indicate whether you're in favour or against? Anyone in favour, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Right, we'll move on to item number 9, the Financial Management 2025-2026 Q1 forecast to year end, which is pages 207 to 218, and it's back to you, Carl.
Thank you. This is the Q1 financial forecast for 25-26. The forecast outturn at the end of Q1 is an overspend of £789,000. A full breakdown of the revenue budget and forecast can be found in Appendix A, and an explanation of key variances in Appendix B. The savings programme has also been reviewed by a leadership team, and in section 1.2 of the report, the previously approved proposals are given a RAG rating according to their progress. The biggest variance remains a £270,000 income shortfall at Beam. However, this is largely due to the delay in recruiting a chef, but an appointment has now been made and a food offering is now available, and this should significantly improve the financial results going forward. The second largest variance is the £210,000 pressure in business rates, And as with 24-25, these are subject to an appeal. So this pressure may reduce if the appeal is successful. The pressures within this report are being scrutinised to ensure that the same pressures are not fed into the 26-27 budget setting process. In the capital programme in Appendix C, there is a £637,000 underspend relating to ORL capital contingency and the ICT rolling programme. Appendix D shows the aged debt position at the end of Q1, which shows a reduction in aged debt of £698,000 over the first quarter, including the settlement of a large debt along with some write-offs. It is anticipated that this figure will continue to reduce as more work is done to resolve old debts. The recommendations are on page 207, and I'd like to propose this report.
Thank you very much. Could I have a seconder, please? Joe, thank you very much. Right, comments or questions on this? Ian, I can see your hands up.
Thank you, Leda. It's about Beam Theatre. Obviously, the food offering was always a very, very important part of the income revenue. So my question is, how do we manage to get a year in and we've just appointed a chef? How did that come about? Thank you.
So my understanding is that when the new theatre director, is that his title? Can't remember now. The theatre director was appointed. His view was that in order to get the best out of the theatre, we needed to focus on getting certain things right. And if we tried to do too much, it would be detrimental to the business as a whole. So the idea was to put on hold the food offering whilst we got other aspects of the business up and running in a better way. And I think now obviously he's felt that now is the time to start moving forward on the food offering. So I think it was probably just that the original plan was possibly too ambitious, and now we're in a position that we can offer food, we can build it up. I think any new business takes a while to build, and we've possibly just been a bit optimistic at how quickly we could build it up from scratch.
Okay, Ian.
Yeah, just coming back on that, I get the impression that there was a lot of turnover of staff. We had a director who left, and another, I think he was a assistant director, he left. Is it all wrapped up in that because we had so many changes of personnel there? I get the feeling that was all part of it, and it all got a bit confused, and maybe, I don't know, maybe the previous directors had all this in mind and it all went by the wayside because they left.
I think the staff, there were staff issues, and I know in the run up to the opening of Beam, there was obviously a lot of work that had to be done just to get it open on time. So I think the project was probably running behind, 6 months or so before the opening, and it was an effort to just get it open on time. Obviously they achieved that, which was fantastic, but it did mean that perhaps not everything was ready to go from day one. And yes, I'm sure the staff issues don't help in those situations. We obviously had a temporary arrangement with SLM to provide staff to cover us for a period of time whilst it was getting ready to become open to the public.
Thanks very much. Vicky, you're up next.
I just think on Beam, what should be remembered is that stage 2 was only delivered around April this year, and getting the bookings for that, etc., had to take precedence, I would say, over chef and food. But I know the soft launch happened last week, and that has gone really well, because I spoke to the chef and the theatre manager this morning, and there will be a full food service from Thursday, as I understand it.
Thanks. Yeah, that's really good news. I'm looking forward to trying it. I tried last week, but I didn't get a chance. And I think with Beam, it's been the bookings. I think the programming has been very, very successful recently. There's been a number of Bill Bailey, a number of sold out events, which I think have been very successful. I think it feels like the programming is really coming together as well. So
Just have a comment
Yeah.
on that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's obviously there's a learning experience that's going through,
Yeah.
isn't it? And
Yeah.
the team are kind of learning what works, what doesn't
Yeah.
work, and so we can expect to see gradual improvements all the way through.
Thanks. I just wondered if you'd agree, Carl. I think there's a lot of learning experiences from the very conception of this product, of this project, to where we are today, and some of the assumptions we were led to believe in opposition previously. I think it's clear that a lot of the success depends on operational aspects, which is probably we have little control over. But fundamentally, there's a lot of lessons to be learnt about the overall ambition of building something like this, and how you have to take a very cautious approach as a local authority when you're building in huge profits to prop up your medium-term financial plans. Really, what was the basis there in the first place? Because now we're at the operational phase, we see that it's certainly not that easy.
Ian?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few things. First of all, I think Ben Wood has been extraordinary because he's had to pick this project up 6 months ago. As far as I'm aware, he didn't have any background in theatre management, and he's not single-handedly, but with his team, he has found his way through this problem. He's found a chef, he's set the kitchens up, and he's what my question is basically to Carl: are we expecting things to pick up from now on in? And I hope the answer is yes. Thank you.
Well, yes, definitely yes. I mean, obviously, as Vicky alluded to, the stage 2 is now open. We've now got the food offering. Another factor which perhaps needs to be thought about as well is that theatre is a seasonal business, and because summer months tend to be quieter, and between kind of, I suppose, September and December, we can expect theatre to be much busier, and hopefully we'll see some good financial numbers between now and the end of the year. And particularly the Panto is obviously one of the big income streams for the theatre. So yeah, hopefully that will be successful this year, and then going forward we'll start to see the theatre bring in some income to the council.
Yeah, thank you. Tim?
Yeah, I think just and this isn't as dramatic as the theatre, but age debt. We've had a notable success, and that's good, but we've had a significant amount of money paid from perhaps one of our largest outstanding debt, which is very encouraging. But it still seems that stuff's slipping towards the right. It's gradually getting older, and the numbers are bigger than they were in March. So I guess if you could Carl, just give us a sort of picture of the steps that we're taking to make sure that this is brought back more in line with where we'd expect it to be or want it to be.
Yeah, sure. There's a number of large outstanding debts which are proven to be complex. Obviously, have involved quite a lot of research and investigation because they go back some time, and obviously we need to find documents. And I'm not sure what the position of them all are, but I think they're all being worked on. I would expect over the next kind of 3 to 6 months, and Brian may want to just confirm what kind of timescale might be, we should see a lot of those resolved.
Cheers, Carl. Yes, a lot of work has been done over the last 6 months. Obviously, it takes a bit of time to write off those debts that we have written off so far. We don't just write them off. We want to make sure there's a reason for writing those off, and obviously that takes time to go through that process of due diligence. So we are now gradually working our way forwards with the debts, and we're trying to manage the newer debts at the same time, so that there's a flow whereby it doesn't get stopped at a certain position because it reached a certain position. So the idea is an automation whereby it will move from the first stage to the second stage to the third stage, and then back to the services to provide the evidence back to legal to take legal action. And again, it's just about trying to shorten that time between each stage so that it flows rather than gets caught somewhere along the way. But again, we are moving in the right direction, and obviously we are continuing to make it a key issue for us to make sure we minimise those as much as possible.
Okay, Alex, did you have a question?
No.
No. Okay. I think I just wanted to add. I think following up what Ian said, I think, on Ben doing a great job. I think that Steve Sargent coming in has been a fantastic move, and Laura Lightfoot. I think the team there in place has been fantastic at Beam. I think they've done a really good job. Yeah, I think we can be very hopeful about the next year or so. But okay, any more questions? No. Okay. Well, the recommendations are on page 207 of the agenda pack. There are 2 recommendations. Can we have a show of hands for all those in favour, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstain? No, thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 10, Treasury Management 2024 to 25 outturn, which is on pages 219 to 233 of the agenda pack. And it's back to you, Carl.
Thank you. This is the Treasury Management Outturn Report for 2024-25, which is shown in the appendix. The SIPFA Code of Practice requires the Council to approve Treasury Management reports twice yearly. The report gives background on the external economic environment for the year. A particular concern to this Council is the 10-year gilt rate, which rose from 3.94% to 4.69% during the course of the year. The gilt rate is the key factor in determining the cost of borrowing for the Council. The report also details the Council borrowing. Over the year, total external borrowing rose from 53.6 million to 64.5 million, whilst investments rose from 33.7 million to 39.3 million. This means the net borrowing increased by 5.3 million. The reason for this was the continued need to fund the capital programme. Almost all the borrowing is short-term loans. This is because the Council hopes to refinance the loans at a lower interest rate when that becomes possible. It is hoped that with inflation forecast to reduce, interest rates will begin to decline and enable the Council to reduce its interest costs. Forecasts of lower inflation, of course, are almost mandatory given the remit of the Bank of England and are often not reflected in reality. Of note on the investment side is that the Council has withdrawn from the Lothbury property investment. Over the year 24-25, total investment in property funds reduced from 17.8 million to 12.8 million, with the funds directed into more accessible investments until needed. The report also shows that the Council has complied with the SIPFA Treasury Management Code by measuring the prudential indicators. The recommendation on this report has changed from the published version. It now reads as follows: that the Executive recommend to Council that the Treasury Management Outturn and Prudential Indicators for 2024-25 be approved. I would like to propose this report.
Thank you very much. Can I have a seconder for the report, please? Thank you, Joe. Questions or comments? No. Looks like you're free. Okay, good. No comments or questions. So the recommendation has been adjusted, as Carl mentioned. There's one recommendation. Could I have a show of hands, please, for those in favour? Lovely. Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No, that was unanimous. Thank you. Right. Item 11 is the Strategic Risk Register Monitoring Q1 2025 to 2026, which is on pages 234 to 256 of the agenda pack. And again, once it's back to you, Carl.
Thank you. A review of the risk register has been carried out by the leadership team, with the reviews of both the scores and mitigations. This is detailed in Appendix A. It is largely unchanged from last time, with no new risks added and no risks deleted. Just one change has been made to the risk scoring, with a reduction to the risk of key contractor failure. This is due to the commencement of the new waste contract and the reduction of risk associated with the new contractor. Also attached is the risk management strategy, which is reviewed annually. The draft version in Appendix B is largely unchanged from the previous version. The only substantive update is the enhancement of the risk scoring framework, which has moved from a 3x3 matrix to a 4x4 matrix, allowing for more detailed evaluation of risk exposure. The recommendations are to note the risk register and actions being taken to control and mitigate risk, and to review the risk management strategy, and I would like to propose this report.
Thank you very much. Could I have a seconder, please? Alex, thank you very much. Comments or questions? No. I think it's nice to see a risk reducing. I think that's always something that we can welcome. So that's good news. Thank you, and obviously again, thanks to the team, Brian and your team for putting all this together. I'm sure it's not quick. So can we have a vote, please? The recommendations are, there are 2 recommendations on pages 2, 3, 4 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands for all those in favour, please? Thank you very much. And anyone against or abstaining? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, item 12, medium-term financial plan 2026 to 2031, which is on pages 257 to 281 of the agenda pack. And again, it's over to you, Carl.
Thank you. This is the medium-term financial plan for 2026 to 2031. Despite the uncertainty around local government reorganisation, the Council is required to produce a financial plan. A requirement of local government reorganisation is that the Council will plan for a balanced budget from 2028. The detail of the plan is provided in the appendix. The report highlights the key assumptions made within it. At this stage, there is still a lot of uncertainty within this plan. The Council has done much over the last 12 months to resolve uncertainties within its own finances, including the tackling of long-term debts, the withdrawal from the property funds, the review of the minimum revenue provision, and the refinancing with new loans. However, we still do not know what we are going to receive from government in any of the main finance streams that we anticipate receiving. This clearly makes any kind of budgeting at this stage little more than guesswork. But by taking a cautious approach with the information we do have, we can model the worst case scenario, and this enables us to take precautionary measures to ensure that we are prepared for that scenario and will be able to produce a balanced budget in the new year once more information is known. The key change occurring that affects this Council this year is the government's so-called fair funding review. The Council welcomes the principle of a multi-year settlement. It is impossible to make realistic 5-year plans when you have no idea what funding will be received from the government. So the extra visibility will be a huge step forward. Unfortunately, the likely outcome of this review will be a significant reduction in funding to this Council, with a reduction in funding of well over 2 million anticipated over the next 3 years. I believe the reason that this will happen is that East Herts is a relatively wealthy area. In a very simplistic view of the world, this makes some sense. However, it does not address the fact that whilst there may be wealth in the district, there are also areas of need and deprivation that still need our support, and that this Council does not have much flexibility to increase its income to make up this funding gap. It is hoped that the review will also address this issue and ensure greater flexibility on setting council tax and fees and charges, so that the Council is able to balance its budget without the need to make further cuts to services. In addition to the fair funding review, there remains uncertainty about other sources of government funding, such as the extended producer responsibility. An assumption has been made that this will reduce by 10%, but this also represents a significant risk in the forecast. There may also be changes to the income the Council received from business rates, detailed in section 4.2 of the report. Council tax is another key source of funding, and the assumption on the council tax is that there will be an inflationary uplift of 2.99%, which is the maximum currently allowed without a referendum. We should note, however, that CPI is currently 3.8%, and that even this maximum increase still potentially leaves this council in a worse financial position than before. The assumption is that growth in the tax base will be 500 Band D equivalent homes. This maintains the recent trend, and it should be noted that whilst our housing targets are far higher than this, our council tax receipts are also affected by the band of the property and the discounts and exemptions available. With the assumptions made on funding and expenditure, the revenue budget for 26-27 shows a net shortfall of £531,000. There are new pressures built in compared to 25-26, some of which are related to the overspend this year, for example, business rates and BEAM. The key spending pressures are listed in 5.4 in section 5.4 of the report. There is already a programme of savings in place, which is detailed in section 5.9. Officers are currently engaged in an exercise to look in detail in each budget category to identify if there are further savings that can be made. Officers will also be considering where there are pressures on services, with a view to ensuring that the council is able to provide the necessary services to residents. Once more information becomes available about government funding, we need to be able to act accordingly and reach the optimal outcome to ensure a balanced budget and provide the maximum level of services available within that budget. Beyond 26-27, there will be further pressures on finances ahead. So in our thinking for 26-27, we must ensure that savings are long-term savings that will help to bridge that gap going forward. Within this review, we will also need to consider our fees and charges. Income from fees and charges is by far the council's largest source of funding if we exclude the housing subsidy. As the government reduces the funding available to us, we need to ensure that our fees and charges keep up with the increases in our costs as a bare minimum. Otherwise, we will see further losses of services. A review of reserves is currently also underway to ensure that these are adequate to meet the council's future needs. The timetable for the budget setting is outlined in section 8 of the report. The current version of the plan will be updated as new information comes to light. But today, the recommendations are advised on page 257, and I would like to propose this report.
Thank you very much, Carl. Could I have a seconder, please? Hermione, thank you very much. Comments and questions. I think I'll start by just saying I think this is an outstandingly good report. I don't mean in terms of giving us really great news, because obviously it doesn't necessarily. But I think in terms of the information presented and the background, the graphics, I think it's first class. So thank you for that. I really appreciated that. I've got a little question for you. It's a detail from page 272, which is the savings section 5.9. There's a table. So that's page 272 of the report, and it shows EV charges on council premises. 2026-27, the savings are 25,000. The following year it drops, and I just wondered why it drops. It goes down. Oh.
No, so it's not a drop. So what we're saying that in 26-27 there'll be £25,000 worth of new income, and then a further 15,000 on top of the 25 in 27-28.
Right, okay, I understand. That makes sense. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Ian?
Yeah, it's just a comment really that I've always thought it was unfair, and I think you would know better than I will. I think the figures are, we think we're going to keep 50% of business rates, what we actually keep is 9%, because we're thought of as an area that can raise revenue. Everybody in this room probably knows that that is not true. I've always thought it's very, very unfair that I don't know how the government work it out, but it's just a comment. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. Sorry, Carl.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the government are reviewing the whole business rates situation, so I don't know whether there'll be any change in that. I don't know whether Brian's got any information on whether that's likely to get any better or not.
Unfortunately not. So obviously what they're looking to do is to reset your base. So obviously any gains that we currently have been achieving over the last 10 years has been, you know, a reasonable amount that we've been able to use to support the services. They're going to reset that base at a higher level based on current trends. So to get any more gains above that, you need to exceed that. So you're not going to be any better off from that perspective.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Carl and Brian. I think what Ben said about the graphics, and I know we talk about the report, it really, I think when members see it, when this comes to full council, it will go there as well. Okay, yeah, I think it's really helpful for members. But I suppose sitting here as an exec member in a little district council, rather than just sort of nod this through, this opportunity I used to say it's really disappointing when you have to look at these things, because we're only going to be in this position for a period, and we hope for savings. I don't hope for savings. I hope for something in the budget that means we don't have to make savings. And when we just sit here instead of talking about the good things we could do, build theatres or new stuff for our residents that makes it a civilised society, again, we're sitting here hoping that central government will provide us some funding. So I think it's just really important that anyone listens to these meetings, if they ever do, we don't sit here wanting to make savings. We sit here wanting to do the best for our communities, and it's really, it's really disappointing to have to do this year after year. And something's got to give at some stage, and something's got to change, especially when they dump LGR on us with absolutely no promise of what, or indication of what the finances are even remotely going to look like, except that we're going to have to spend lots and lots of money and lots of officer time where they could be working on their local community. They've got to spend hours and hours. I'm sure you do, Brian, I know Helen does, having meetings about how this is all going to work. And I'd bet my house that the funding we get from government to pay for all that doesn't come anywhere close for the reorganisation. So that's my rant over. Thank you, Leader.
I think that's a very, very fair comment. I think yeah, can I agree. Vicky.
I admire Councillor Dumont's optimism that we'll get some money to pay for LGR.
There has been a small amount, hasn't there? There's been a very limited amount. And I suppose, is there any? We're expecting an update from the government just before Christmas, as usual. That's the situation. Okay.
Yeah, so obviously we've got the government's does its budget at the end of November, and then obviously it'll be about 3 weeks after that MHCLG will then obviously give local authorities their figures, which will normally be the last day before reset at Christmas for them.
Putting extra pressure on you and your team just before Christmas. Yeah. No. Oh well. Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay. Well, thank you very much. So recommendations are. There are 4 recommendations. These are on pages 257, 258 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands to indicate whether you are in favour, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstain? No, that's been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Right, item 13 has been done earlier. We're moving to item 14, which is urgent business. Is there any urgent business? No, there's no urgent business. Okay, so at 8 minutes past 8, we can close this meeting. Thank you very much.